but welcome to the 2021 Women Build Week of Events. I'm really excited to have Lisa Terry here. If you're involved at all with the Winston-Salem community, you know that she is a pillar when it comes to financial literacy and all. And so without further ado, Lisa Terry, if you would take it away.
Thank you. I see familiar face. Hey, Willette. Hello, Miss Hazel. How are you today?
Hey, Lisa.
All right. Well, thank you so very much, Brittany. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, ladies, for being here. I'm going to go ahead and do my share my screen, and hopefully I'll click on the right thing, and then y'all let me know that you can see my PowerPoint. You see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I understand that this has been a great week for Habitat for Humanity for their Women's Build, and I think it's an awesome opportunity for them to be able to provide extra resources, services, workshops, information for people in the community, and I'm very honored to be a part of this. Financial Pathways, who I am with, and Habitat for Humanity has partnered and collaborated in many different capacities over many years. And so I always appreciate the opportunity to be able to share information with Habitat and with prospective home buyers or other residents in the community. So this is great. I really do appreciate it. So we are about empowering women, and this week I know it's all about women and empowerment. And one of these sayings here I thought was really important was that the empowered woman is powerful beyond measure, and I'm including myself in that, we are beautiful beyond description. And so today we're going to kind of talk about the psychology of money. I do have, and this is totally up to you, and I know we have a small group, so we can also do it in the chat, but I try to make my presentations a little bit of interactive so that I do have a polling. It's called Poll Everywhere, that is actually set up through the PowerPoint itself. So if you want to participate, and if you have your cell phone or you're not using your cell phone for the presentation, then you can just text to the number 22333, and then the text that you will send is Lisa Terry 613. And when you send that, that basically activates you for the poll. That I do have some questions throughout. Otherwise, we can always use the chat box feature as well, and that is not a problem whatsoever. Of course, just for general Zoom guidelines, if everyone already isn't aware of them, just because we've been doing this now for so long with the pandemic, to try and stay muted unless you're speaking. Obviously, if there are questions and we are small, you can always raise your hand, put a question in the chat box, even interrupt me if you want to. I'm really laid back. You can tell, you'll be able to tell my presentation style is very laid back and informal. And so I like to kind of keep this conversational as well, but I also love to hear from the participants and from my audience. If you want a copy of this presentation when I'm done, I can either send it to Brittany and she can share it with you as registered participants, or you can email me directly and I can send it to you, whatever works best for you all. So first poll question, and again, you can always just put it in the chat. I know that this has been a phenomenal week of women for Habitat for Sight. So how has your week of events been so far? Tell me in 1 or 2 words what has helped you get through this week, or what has been the highlight of your week so far if you have been participating in the Habitat programs, or even if it's not related, what has been the highlight of your week so far? And again, you can put it in the chat, or if you want to use the text feature, you can. If not, that is okay. I know that for me personally, even though I hate that the sunshine is not out right now, but I've been excited to plan and prepare for this workshop today. But honestly, the highlight of my week so far is knowing that Saturday, my husband and I are going to just go to the mountains for a night getaway. So that's what I'm excited about. So learning from all the facilitators, the calls have been very encouraging and a good divider for throughout the day. Very good. Okay, good. Well, hopefully the information that we're going to share and talk about today will be just as helpful. And, you know, use this time to reflect on your own spending habits and beliefs and behaviors. But this is also kind of fun in that we're kind of talking about why we spend the way that we do, which can be kind of interesting. And that we have to also realize that we didn't become this way overnight. And so if there's ever any changes that we want to make, that it does definitely take time. So just a little bit about Financial Pathways of the Piedmont. Our mission is to help individuals build and improve their financial well-being. And just so that you are aware, and if you really think about it, financial well-being is not a measure of income, but how we as individuals manage our day-to-day expenses, how we are aware of financial concepts, how we're able to meet our financial goals, whatever they may be, because they're going to be different for every individual, and how we also absorb any type of financial shock, which of course is all of those wonderful unexpected emergencies that pop up. And to also be able to enjoy life, because we don't want to just pay bills, work, pay bills, work, pay bills, work, and die, right? I know that sounds morbid, but we want to be able to also enjoy some freedoms and some life activities and family and friends and grandchildren and all that good stuff. So here at Financial Pathways, even though we do counsel individuals through crisis, I wouldn't necessarily consider us a crisis center. However, we do see a lot of people, obviously, when they have been affected by some type of economic impact, but we also do coach clients to meet their financial goals. So someone may not necessarily be in a crisis situation and they're just needing help or guidance, or maybe just a financial checkup to see if what they're doing or to get kind of like an outside opinion or suggestions or tips on ways to improve or level up maybe their financial situation. And then of course, like with today, we provide financial education to improve the financial capability in our community as well. We are a HUD approved housing counseling agency. We are a member agency of the NFCC, which is the National Foundation for Credit Counseling. And we're also a United Way member here in Forsyth County. So today's overview briefly is what is the psychology of money. We're going to talk about spending behaviors and habits, the money disconnect, which is one of my favorite little sections, and then things to think about for what's next. What do we do going forward? So finances is already a hard thing to talk about, obviously, and as women, you know, we often carry the heavy load or burden of responsibilities with taking care of everything. We are everything to everybody. Typically women are, and statistically, women are the caregivers, not only for their own families themselves, but also for parents or other family members, grandparents. And so we are constantly taxed with duties and responsibilities. And most of the time, our needs are set aside until there's time to fit that in, if we ever do get a chance to fit that in. So I hope that for today, for this brief hour and 20 minutes that we have left, if we use that much time, that you will take this time to reflect on yourself, that you will think about you, not your kids, not your husband, your spouse, your significant other, not your job or what you might be missing because you're on this call, or your to-do list, which mine is right over here, but to really think about you and what your finances are now, how you want them to be, how you feel about them, how you think about them, and hopefully some of the things that we'll talk about today will also kind of give you some insight into looking at them a little bit differently. So another poll, again, you can just use the chat box, but where or from whom did you learn about money? Where or from whom did you learn about money? Whether it was a person, place, thing. Um, Again, you can use the chat box if you would like. Where or from whom did you learn about money? And it may be that it was more than one source. It may be that as a young person, you learned from one aspect, but then as you grew up, yes, Willette, I'm with you right there. You know, parents, if they did talk to you about money, they probably didn't tell you everything because, you know, probably my generation and before, that was grown folks' business. So people didn't talk about, you know, their rent or what bills they could make or not make, or what we had enough money to get or not get. You just knew either you had it or you didn't, and there was no conversation about why or when. So usually, yeah, learning from life experience, trial and error, as I call it. And sometimes those are the good ways to learn because hopefully it sticks. Now, sometimes I know for myself, it's taken a couple of trial and errors, but I think now finally I got it. Although I will say I don't think your finances necessarily are mastered. I think it's just something that we kind of grow into and we evolve over time, especially throughout our financial life cycle, because it's different depending on where we are in our life. So more than likely you learned, or who you learned from, it impacts the way that you spend now. It could be opposite ends of the spectrum, or you could be a spender or saver, just like who you learned from. Could be some good, some bad. Unfortunately, 13% of Americans believe that they will remain in debt for the rest of their lives. And we have heard many, many, many times that only 40% of Americans are one paycheck away from poverty. And I'm sure that statistic has greatly changed since the pandemic, and that 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. And just as I said that a financial well-being is not indicative of salary or the amount of money someone makes, but financial stress is also not indicative of income earned as well. 68% of workers with household incomes less than $60,000 are financially stressed, just as 52% of households with over $100,000 of income are stressed. I know that for me, and for a lot of people, it's like, oh, I wish I made that much money. That'd make all my problems go away. Well, like the song says, more money, more problems. And I think that it's all relative, because regardless of whether you make a little bit or a lot, it's all how you manage it, and that you manage it and that it doesn't manage you. Let's see. Yep, life experiences. Okay, just want to make sure I didn't miss another chat answer. Okay, so what is the psychology of money? The psychology of money is the study of our behavior with money. Now, you don't necessarily have to be successful with money, or it's not necessarily knowledge or IQ, or whether you're good at math or not. It's all about the behavior. And now researchers even concede that even though parenting and life experiences have an impact on the saving and spending habits of people, by the age of 40, learned money behaviors recede and habits are almost fully governed by a person's genetic predispositions. So, you know, just with everything else, like, now we can't go back and use it as an excuse. Well, I was just born that way. We probably don't want to indicate that we're an overspender because it's in my genes. But, you know, there's really no telling what all could be involved in the mental processes that take place in someone's brain when we are spending or saving. And there's also a lot of correlation between that dopamine that makes you feel good when you spend. Just like for savers, they may get that same effect when they save and they see their savings increase. That may give them that same feeling of elation and of good feelings and positive feelings. So sometimes it's just a matter of hoping that feeling will switch somewhere between the spending triggers and the saving triggers. Whether we're talking about your money or your life as a whole, knowing yourself is a huge factor in creating meaningful change. So again, are you a spender or a saver? Most people find it very easy to determine right off the bat whether or not they're a spender or a saver. I know that for most of my life, I was always a spender. I always consumed it all. I like to eat food. I like to eat candy. I always joke about how as kids at Halloween, my brother would keep his Halloween candy like forever. He would still have his Halloween pumpkin with candy in it by Thanksgiving. I didn't. So then I'd be trying to steal his candy because I was always more of a consumer. Um, and so you'll have people that will use up, consume, spend, or you may have others that will keep everything, that will save everything, that will have a stash of something. Or hopefully we have those that might be right in the middle. And I will say, I have kind of changed. I still like to spend, especially now that I'm a grandma, but I'm getting a lot better on the saving side, especially now that I am 50 and realize that I'm much more closer to retirement than I thought I would ever be 20 and 30 years ago. So the psychology is, of course, the scientific study of the mind and behavior. Behavior obviously is the way in which we act or conduct ourselves. And then behavioral economics is simply the psychology as it relates to how we make those financial decisions, kind of how we make what generates the process or the process that generates in making those financial decisions. What can be dangerous for spenders and savers is obviously going to the extreme. So if you are a spender and you spend everything, then obviously you're going to miss out on opportunities of saving for trips, big purchases, or other things. If you are a saver and you never spend it, then you're going to miss out on things because you're always hoarding and saving it. So we kind of need to think about, well, what is the point of it all? And that's where a lot of times our own personal goals is going to be the driver of our spending decisions. Then we also think about safety versus status. Are you financially motivated by safety or by status? So meaning that after doing some soul searching, real soul searching, and being honest with yourself. And that's the other thing. We may know some things about ourselves, but we may project otherwise. And I think once we really get true to our self and what our motivations are, it can really be helpful in really knowing what our spending habits and behaviors are and why they are the way they are. So really being honest with yourself, I think, is a huge key. That way, it's gonna make your psychology of money work for you. It's not gonna manage you. You're going to be able to manage it. So people who value safety and want the security that money can bring, they may want to be able to withstand a job loss, or if there's an unexpected emergency, or the fear that something could happen. That could be an extreme. So they hoard everything just in case something happens, but then they're not really living. Medical emergencies, or just even a change or a dip in income. If you're a safety person, you need to watch out for living in fear, because fear obviously can keep you from giving generously, investing in retirement, or even spending the money on a new pair of shoes when obviously the ones that you're wearing may need to be replaced. If money is about status, then that's how they measure success. So the amount of money they have affects the type of home they're going to live in, the activities they're involved in, and their ability to go on that dream vacation. And I'm sure we have all heard before the term keeping up with the Joneses, right? So when we think about early life experiences with money, how it may have evolved into current day habits, there's probably many different things that we know we can do better. But for one reason or another, we don't. We still may make maybe some sketchy choices sometimes with spending money. So to break bad habits, consider how they make you feel. Has anyone ever experienced buyer's remorse? Have you ever purchased something and you were elated and just happy and giddy in the store? You get in the car and it's like, as you're going home, the realization, starts daunting that, maybe I shouldn't have bought that. And then by the time you get home, now you're completely guilty that you purchased it because you didn't really need it. Maybe it was on sale and you just wanted to buy it because it was on sale. I mean, how many pairs of black shoes does one person need? Speaking from someone who has a lot of different black pairs of shoes. So what's one of maybe your not so great choice that you may have made with money that turned into some buyer's remorse? Does anybody have an example they would like to share, or you can chat, or you can speak up, unmute yourself and speak would be great.
Lisa, it's Willette. The one thing I think about is like buying. I don't know even know if it's considered buying, but getting into a business that I wasn't really in agreement with. But you do it because you think you might can make money, or you do it because the person asking you, so you're trying to help them out or something. But it's not anything you really want to do. And after you do it, it's like I really shouldn't have done that.
Yes, I think that's a perfect example. And I think that's also what could possibly be the demise for so many small businesses when they start and fail is because of that. The misconception or the preconceived notion that I'm going to be my own boss, I'm going to make my own money, it's going to take off, I'm going to be great. Not to say that it won't or can't, but sometimes it takes more planning. And like you said, the thing that you said, it didn't sit well with your spirit, or you don't know if it was something that you should have been doing.
Right.
That's your instinct telling you
not to do it.
Right. What do you think, Miss Hazel?
Mine is closed, but I have stopped. Like when I go in the department store, I always pick up something that I don't need. I say, oh, look at that top. That's pretty. I have clothes here with the tags on them.
Yes, ma'am.
Like from a couple of years, and shoes. And I realize now I don't go anywhere but just church and go shopping. Why do I need all those clothes? I said, no, I look at them and I keep on going. And just like in January for my daughter's wedding, I went to David's Browder and got a dress because she said, Mama, you have to get a dress in the color. And I got home and looked in the closet. I said, the same dress I wore to my grandson's wedding 4 years ago, I could have wore that dress.
Yep.
So, I had tore the tag off, was at the wedding. I said, oh my, I can't take it back now. I said, I shouldn't have did this. That would have been money that I would have had, So I realize now I have to think when I go shopping, especially at department stores. And I be trying to match up to go to church or something. I said, well, I don't need these clothes. I have decent clothes to wear. Yep. So, I've stopped shopping. I just wear what I have.
Yep. I recently did a closet purge because, you'll hear about people that say if you got stuff in your closet and you turn the hangers all one way, and then as you use it, you hang it up the other way so that you can see by the end of the year. If you've got clothes that you've never touched, then why do you still have them? And then even with the pandemic, I think it's also made me realize that, especially with the virtual world, as long as I'm good from the waist up,
yes,
from the waist down. And so yeah, I think. But on the other hand, it's also made me turn to Amazon a lot, and I got all kinds of stuff coming from Amazon, but most of the time that's for the grandbaby anyway.
Right.
But yeah, so it's all about paying attention to how you feel when you're making the decision. Why are you buying it if you know that you probably don't need it? What is the feeling that's associated with it? And obviously, because we're a society of just hurry up and instant gratification, a lot of times we're just on autopilot when we're spending. So a lot of times we're not even checking in with ourselves to find out, okay, do I really need this? Why do I want this? Do I just want to buy something because it's going to make me feel good for the moment because I could buy something? Or, what is the motivation behind the purchase? And so that's the biggest thing that I really want people to take away from this conversation today is, what is your motivation behind the spending? Is it getting you to where you want to be financially? Is it helping you get towards your goals, or is it stepping you back from your goals? And then when you answer those questions, I think it will help you determine what answer or what decision you need to make. A trip or a vacation, I see that. I know that were you the person that thought we are going to have this trip, it's going to be the bomb, we're going to have fun, and then either you go and it may have been all right, but you spent way too much money than you should have, or we could have went somewhere else and done this a whole lot cheaper.
Mhm,
One
mhm.
of those kind of situations. So yes, I totally get it with the whole, or the weather was terrible and then it ended up not being such a great vacation after all. So yes, so influences on our spending behavior. Obviously, we have our own personality, we have our social cues and our social network. And I don't just necessarily mean social media, but just our social network, just like Miss Hazel said, with church or with groups or family that you may see or meet with. The knowledge that we have is what we're going to be influenced by as well. Our decision-making processes, and then of course behaviors. So, our social and economic environment, what surrounds us, our parents, grandparents, family, friends, our personality, how you tend to think and feel and act about things. Two siblings can be raised, and just like I said with me and my brother, raised in the same exact household, same exact environment. And that, you're two different people, he's a boy, I'm a girl. So there's, gender differences, gender expectations. And so he was more of a saver and I was more of a spender. And so you can come from the same exact environment and still have completely different spending habits, behaviors, patterns. One could be horrible managing money. One could be really well with managing money. One could do well financially, one may not. So there's a lot more to it than just environment in most situations, and personality. Decision, how we make decisions, what we know and what we don't know. Sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And I know that we hear that and it may not make sense to people, but if you don't know something, or if you don't know what the repercussions or the consequences are of making a particular financial decision, then you're not going to know until you've actually learned from it. A prime example for a big one in the state of North Carolina for many, many years was payday lending. It may have sounded great for someone that was in an immediate crisis that needed a really quick loan to get past something or whatever, but then realizing afterwards how expensive that loan ended up being, and that maybe if they just paused for a second and tried to think about other potential resources or assistance that may have been available, or asked a family member, it may have saved some financial woes. And I'm only speaking of that because I myself am familiar with that debt trap from back in the 80s, late 80s, 90s. Lived experience, obviously, I think that too, it's true that we have like financial life cycles or financial stages. So, when we're young, we may not have our own money yet that we are earning or spending. We think our parents or whoever is raising us are ATM machines, or we just think that money comes and we want something and we, get it, or we don't. So depending on how that happens. And then we may have gotten our first job. So now we realize, oh, well, just because I make this an hour, by the time my check comes, I don't even realize that taxes come out and this comes out. So now I really have less than what I thought. So then they start realizing the value of their money and making their decisions differently, because now it's their money versus mom and dad's money. And then maybe you've graduated from college, or you've gone away to college, or you experience how expensive further education is, or living on your own, and then getting that full-time job and career and managing. And then now I'm kind of like at what I would like to say, the crest of the hill, where it's like, ooh, now I'm thinking about retirement and what that's going to look like. So I think that we definitely have financial life cycles that we have to take into consideration when we're talking about our financial picture, and whether or not we're taking care of children, whether it's just us, whether there's a spouse, whether we're taking care of our parents, grandchildren, other family members, etc. And everybody's situation is different. So deciding which bad spending habits you want to break first, take a look at your bank account. Now, and that's part of what will be in the money disconnect section of the presentation. We are such an automated, robotic swiper system now that most people who probably receive bank statements, if you're not getting them old school in the mail and you're getting them through e-statements, probably aren't even looking at them. And so I think that there's a lot of great strides towards technology, but I think it has also impacted the way that we manage our finances. And that the least amount that we spend actually touching, feeling, hands-on with our finances, I think the further disconnected we get with our finances. And so if you're not looking at bank statements, I guarantee if you were to look at bank statements and add up categories of spending or track your spending, you will be pleasantly, well, I wouldn't even say pleasantly surprised. You'll probably be shocked at how quickly money adds up, money goes, and where you're spending it. You know, starting small with habits that you want to change or break. Going over different bills, statements. I know cell phones have changed over the years, so it's not necessarily a lot about minutes and data anymore as it once was, but still there are certain plans that you need to take into consideration what's going to be better beneficial for you financially. Are you eating out more than cooking at home? I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but looking at your food budget, if that's perfect for you, then that works for you. I know I've been guilty of going to pick up groceries and then I hit a drive-through on the way home because now it's like, now I got to go home and unload them and then figure out what I want to cook. So, you know, I'm just as guilty of it as well. And it's all about convenience sometimes too. You know, we're always busy, especially women. We want convenience. A lot of times we want quick. So sometimes that also drives our decisions. Buying duplicate items, shopping impulsively, shopping online, shopping sales just because you love the thrill of a good deal. So figuring out what's going to work for you. I've told myself and my husband that I need to, I don't know if I can put a block on my Amazon app like after a certain time, because sometimes I just like to scroll. But you know, it can be addictive, and there's statistics that show that social media and cell phone usage is addictive. So then you throw in the ability to be able to shop, buy food, send money, all these other things that we can attach to it. It can kind of be a mixture of a bad storm. So how and why we spend, a lot of what we do is totally unconscious. We don't even realize that we're doing it. It's all done subconsciously. We just like how we can get in the car and we know we're going to go to work and we just go, we don't have to think about it. Or I know that when we first moved in this building on North Point Boulevard, we were further up North Point when we first moved to this building, and we had already been here for a while. I literally passed the building and my car was heading to the old building because just out of habit or routine, or, you know, not even kind of thinking, you're driving and you're driving safely, but sometimes you don't even realize that subconsciously you are, you know, doing things that you just have always been used to doing. So consciously you can plan, you're more deliberate. I've turned into a list maker, which I think helps. That helps me stay on task, stay on target to what I need to do, especially if I am grocery shopping. You know, and the best way to always think about anything spending is needs versus wants. And I definitely think that line has blurred over the past decade, or maybe even longer, but definitely probably since, you know, the really robust online technical social media, internet, shopping online, automatic payments, debit cards, needs versus wants. I think the line between the two has definitely grayed a lot. You know, consciously you're going to set goals and be more opt to doing what you need to do to reach those goals. You're more aware of what's going on, but it could still be that you consciously know that this is going to be much more convenient for me to go to the drive-through because I don't want to cook when I get home. Sometimes consciousness makes us aware of either scarcity or abundance. think about what happened at the beginning of the pandemic with the toilet paper scarcity. Everybody was just, bum rushing all the grocery stores, and you couldn't find toilet paper for miles and miles, and you couldn't even order it online anymore because it was just out everywhere, because of scarcity or because of the fear of there being scarcity. So everybody buys abundance of it to make sure that they have enough. Our money mindsets. The psychology of money is the study of our behavior, as we indicated. And between 40 and 80%, and that's a lot when you think about it, between 40 and 80% of purchases are impulse buys. Marketers often get blamed for it, but a lot of times we're even aware of marketing tactics. But sometimes, it still happens. Prime example, when you go to the grocery store and you just need to grab milk, where's the milk? When you go into the grocery store.
It's in the back of the store most times.
Yep. Why do you think it's in the back of the store?
You have to pass a whole lot of other things before you get there.
Yeah.
The milk, the bread, the eggs, that kind of stuff. It's either on one end of the store or the other, but you're going to have to pass a whole bunch of stuff probably to get to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course they're going to have all of the sale items up front. They're usually going to have parts of the front of the grocery store by the produce and the gifts or fruit or whatever. All that looks all inviting and wonderful, or they're cooking chicken over, and that's like, if I smell fried chicken, that just drives me crazy. I just have to eat something. So you've got the delis and the grocery stores that are cooking. So you got the smells going, you've got the visual cues that are going, and it's touching all those senses, all those feel good things. And those are some of those unconscious things that we're not even aware that's happening, because of what they're doing, to basically subconsciously make us shop. Of greater concern, the fact that up to 95% of our daily decisions are potentially determined by impulsive, unconscious processes. So that's where we really have to check in with ourselves to make sure what our goal is. I mean, I've even walked into a store before and I'm like, okay, stay on task, focus, focus, focus. I mean, literally, because I can so get sidetracked easily. And I mean, there's been times where I will literally just be looking up at the ceiling of the store, looking for the signs of the aisle that I need to go down, because I don't want to go down any other aisles, because if I do, I know I'm going to buy other stuff. But I know that about me. And so sometimes when you know things about yourself, you have to listen to yourself. Otherwise, you're going to end up in trouble. I can't do Walmart. I can't do Super Walmart. I can't do groceries at Walmart because I'm going to be over in housewares, or I'm going to be over in baby stuff. And then before you know it, I'm checking out and I haven't even got not one piece of grocery, and I've got all this other stuff. So if I need groceries, I have to go to a grocery store. Now I can do Walmart Neighborhood Market, but even that, they drive me crazy because they don't ever have enough cashiers. But anyway, so now actually I've gotten to where I love ordering groceries and picking them up at the Food Lion in Grandview. That cuts down all my impulse shopping, which is fabulous. I think I have done a whole lot better doing that. And just $1.99 fee is a piece of cake compared to probably what I would spend impulsively if I was in the store directly. Let's see, mindsets. It can be an overriding attitude that you have about your finances. It can drive you on how to make those key decisions every day. They're influenced by perceptions, decision-making, and, it could make you more likely to spend or not. It could be on one of those spectrums. Again, it just all depends. It's so intertwined into our individual being and our individual makeup that sometimes if we don't really pay attention, we just assume that's the way it's supposed to be. So we just keep up with it or keep on doing it the way that we've always done it. But I think we have a lot more control than we realize, and that we have to be the ones to check ourselves. So when I talk about awareness, I'm talking about, like, what are your triggers? Like, I know not to go to the grocery store hungry. That is not going to work. I know that if I don't make a list, that might get me in trouble. If I know that I'm going to go pick up baby clothes, I either need to have a list, or if I know it's just going to be a blowout, then it's just going to be a blowout, or I just don't look. Back in the day of always going to the mall, people that would go to the mall all the time just to go to the mall, I don't want to go shopping if I don't need to spend money. If I don't need to spend money, then I'm not going to go somewhere where you're going to be tempted to spend money. I just think that personally for me is just not a good step for me. Are there any particular triggers or either conscious or unconscious things that you guys think about with regards to yourself that you would like to share?
Well, Lisa, I think mine are a lot like yours. A lot of the things you just said, I know that I've never liked shopping. I know that's not what you said, but to say that, I'm saying that I if I don't have the money to spend, I'm not going. And then I know myself, I like to make lists too, because it helps me to stay on task. I don't know, just about everything you said, it was about the same for me.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Miss Hazel?
Everything you say relates to me. I make a list, but I go over my list.
Yeah, I mean,
I do.
I do that sometimes too, because sometimes I may realize, oh, I forgot something that I need,
Right.
or my big triggers are around holidays. So like right now with Easter candy, and then it was Valentine's candy, and then because I just love sweets, so pastries, candy, goodies, all that kind of stuff, and the pretty little cookies and all that yummy stuff usually gets me. But I really have to stay focused, and shopping online like that helps, because then I can't see all that stuff.
Right. And I kept saying I'm not gonna get a Sam's Club, but a card, but I did. And I went out there for Thanksgiving because I like the bag of apples. And I said, I'm going to get a bag of apples. I went to get the apples, and I knew I shouldn't have went in between those aisles. They had like, I think it was 6 or 7 cans of the Star Kids tuna, and they was wrapped up, and I love tuna. I said, well, if I go to Walmart and get 1 can, look what I can get for all these cans. I still have all those cans of tuna except for 2. The big, large boxes of cereal. I love the regular Cheerios. Yeah, because you can buy them cheaper at Sam's Club, can you get in Walmart? They're like $3 or something at Walmart. So I got that. When I left, I had $80-some worth of stuff. Nobody's here but me. And you know, that stuff is packed up. I even cut down to my bananas. I used to buy about 4 or 5 bananas. When I look over in my fruit bowl, bananas have started going bad. So now I buy 2 at a time. Because I live right across the street from the neighborhood Walmart. I can just walk over there and pick up a few things. But I've learned, you know, when I go in the store, I try not to, but I haven't really did. My problem is I go in between the aisles to see what's, you know, they have put on the aisle. In the center aisles at the neighborhood Walmart, that's where they get me. They'll put things that they have reduced and stuff, and I get it in bucks, you know. And spending is my biggest problem, you know. With saving, that's what I'm gonna save this, and I say, oh, I need this, and I go to the store and I see something else. I said, well, I'm gonna get paid soon. I can put that money back. Yeah, but that's my biggest problem. Like you said, I don't stay on my list. I always go over.
Yep, it is. It can be hard, and so that if that's something that you are wanting to change, then you have to figure out what's going to make you stick to your list, or set some boundaries or limitations, or and I mean, and it takes time, because obviously we didn't get this way overnight, so it's not going to change overnight, and it's just something that you have to work on if it's something that you definitely want to change. You know, it can be hard to create new habits or to change bad habits. Everyone wants to be able to cultivate better money habits, but people often forget that spending habits are just that. They are spending habits. We all have habits, whether they're good or bad. And it's acquired behavior pattern that we do it so often, it just becomes an involuntary action. So it could be, some examples could be that, you know, I get paid and I immediately buy lunch that day or something, or I immediately spend money right after I get paid, or and I know it's always funny because I used to be like, I would spend it rapidly when I would first get it, and then when I get down to that last $20-$40, well, I could really pinch it. I could pinch that money and make it last. So I needed to like flip that behavior and start pinching from the beginning so that I wouldn't feel like I was stressed at the end and having to feel that way. But again, that is something that you have to retrain your brain to think about. Because if you've always used to be, doing something the way you've been doing it, it takes time to change. Same thing with buying souvenirs. Me and my husband go to the beach. We go to very boring, simple Carolina beach every year, because when I go to the beach, I literally go to the beach. I don't want to go shopping. We might go out to eat once, but we always get a room where I can just kind of cook there or whatever. But I always get a t-shirt. Why do I need to get a t-shirt every time I go to the beach? Now, mind you, usually it will be the ones that are on the sale rack. And I probably have way too many t-shirts, but just because I always feel like, and I was kind of raised that way too, is when you go somewhere, you buy a souvenir. But of course that was when mom and dad were buying them, but now, here I am buying them. So just thinking about different ways to handle your money differently. And perhaps, being a saver may feel less satisfying for some, but it may be totally gratifying for others. I know that even shopping sometimes and seeing stuff, I've even been in a store before and I've had stuff in my basket and I was just like, what am I doing? I'm just here just because I'm here. And I have literally left the basket in the middle of the aisle and I've left before because just something was like, I don't need anything in this basket. I'm here just because I'm here, just because I want to shop or walk around or buy stuff. And I don't need none of this stuff. I don't feel like fooling with it. And so I've actually left before. It's weird. Maybe that's just like my inner voice saying, go home, you don't need this stuff. And sometimes we have to listen to that. And it could be that maybe we're compulsive shopaholics. I know I had a friend in high school who had probably, or after high school, from high school, but I knew her since high school. She probably had a credit card from every store at the mall back in the 90s. And some people are, like to shop, and there's nothing wrong with that if your budget can handle it. And if you're also able to reach the goals that you want to reach. If you're wanting to save money because you want to buy a house, but you can't save because you shop, then you may not be ready to buy a house yet. And that's okay. But just know that, in order to do something, you have to usually do something different. Money management lessons that we learned as kids, they probably change over time. Spenders and savers in the same family, kids who grew up in poverty and still develop great wealth. And then you have heirs who blow the family fortune. So there are still so many different integral things that happen that have to do with kind of our whole psychology of money, behind spending, behind behaviors. And actually, I had found this really interesting article from the National Institute of Health that kind of linked, like I said before, about the dopamine, that the pleasure-based habits are particularly difficult to break because the enjoyable behavior prompts your brain to release dopamine. And dopamine is that reward signal or feeling that strengthens that habit and creates the craving to do it again. So every time you do something that makes you feel good, the next time you may have to buy 2 shirts or 2 blouses instead of 1 because just one's not going to do it. Just like, with any kind of addictive behavior, you need more and more and more to feel that pleasure sensor because just the minimum is not going to do it anymore. So that ends up creating a very vicious cycle of addiction. And we know that there's shoppers that can be addictive. Gambling can be addictive. We already know drugs and alcohol. And so there's many things that, happen in our brain that we don't even realize is contributing to some of our decision-making practices. Replacing bad habits with good spending habits, find out what it is that you really need to, what your reason is to change that habit. Spending or saving makes a lot more sense when you have a target to hit. Making money goals and keeping them in mind whenever you swipe your card or you hand over that cash may put your spending in perspective. And statistically, we will spend more money when we swipe than if we have cash in our hands. And I know that for myself to be true, because how many times have you had a 20 and you know you're good if you don't break it? Once you break it, it might go a little bit quicker. But if you had a 20 or 40 or $60 in your hand and you had your debit card, chances are you're probably going to swipe because you want to hold on to that cash. Just imagine if you didn't have the debit card, you'd be able to save your cash. But statistically, we do spend more when we use plastic. So whether that's a credit card or a debit card, we will spend more than if we have cash in our hand. And my husband swears one day we are going to have a cashless society, and we aren't far from it with all the methods and ways that we can spend money now. So it wouldn't surprise me that one day paper money will be a thing of the past. Live on a budget, create a plan. And that's another thing. A lot of people may not have ever even made a budget for themselves or created a budget, or think that you say the B word and that means now all of a sudden you can't spend any money. Nope, doesn't have anything to do with that. It just has everything to do with where your money is going. And if you want to call it a spending plan instead of a budget, then that even sounds better, because then at least the word spend is in it. But a spending plan, a budget, whatever you want to call it, and regardless of how much technology changes, advances, cash goes away, a budget is still a budget is still a budget. A budget was the same thing in the 1900s and the 1800s, and a budget's still going to be the same thing in 2040. It is the amount of money in and the amount of money out over a period of time. That will never change. It may change the methodology in which you are spending and tracking this money, but a budget is still the same thing. Practicing gratitude. I know I hear this a lot too when you talk to people about minimalistic living or downsizing, is that, Americans are very consumeristic. I don't even know if that's a word. We consume. We always want stuff. And so it's like we want the next best thing, the next biggest thing, the next new thing. But have we ever really paid attention to what we already have and showed gratitude for the things that we do have? Have y'all noticed how many new storage facility places are popping up all over the place because we have so much stuff that now we don't have a place to put it in our house. So now we're going to rent a space to go put stuff in that we're not even going to be able to use because we don't have room in our house for it. I mean, those are trends that are nationally researchable. You can actually look it up and see how the growth of storage facilities to house your excess stuff. Now I realize there may be specific reasons and needs for it. And I'm not saying that, you're going to be doomed if you have one or use one, but I'm just saying that, you can tell by the influx and the increase of these facilities as they pop up all over town and beyond, that they're popping up for a reason. Research before you shop. Especially if it's a big ticket item, you may not want to make a willy-nilly decision. You may want to really take some time and think about it, do some research, and so that you can make a fully informed decision and not have any of that buyer's remorse. And I even tell people, hey, if you go somewhere and you see something, you feel like you got to have it, give it 24 hours, step away from it. Chances are the overwhelming need to have it may dissipate. If it doesn't, then go back in 24 hours or 48 hours. If it's still there waiting on you, then maybe it was meant to be for you to have. But at least give yourself a cooling off period, as I call it, so that you can, because once you step away from the situation, you may realize, oh, I don't need that. Or on the way home, you might get a flat tire. And if you would have bought that blouse, now you can't afford to get your tire fixed. So, sometimes life has a funny way of happening. Avoiding your spending triggers, obviously, if we know what those are. Bakery smells and food smells, that just does it for me. It just, finding an accountability partner. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to spill your guts and tell them everything about all of your finances and how much money you make and how much you're spending, but maybe you just need somebody to talk to about, well, what do you do to curb your spending? Or I see you've been able to do XYZ. What are you doing to do that? Or whether it's your spouse, whether it's someone that you trust, whether it's a neutral party, you know, finding someone that may be able to help you stay on task. Um, Shopping while you wait, you know, we all walk around with these cell phones in our hands. So wherever we are, whether we're waiting in line, waiting at a stoplight, waiting at the doctor's office, wherever we wait, and you always see people on cell phones. So try to stop or reduce the thrill or the necessity to shop or what have you while you're waiting. Of course, most people probably scroll Facebook or social media anyway. I don't want to, you know, develop, you know, they say if you pray for patience, God will definitely give it to you. So, but you do want to sometimes develop patience, and it may be that you just have this urge to buy something, but find out, you know, dig deep inside and find out why is that. Is there something that you're just trying to feel a feeling or an emotion for that time? You know, if you wait, will that pass? Emotional spending. I know that for myself, I'm an emotional spender, emotional eater. And that doesn't mean I'm sad and I want to spend or eat. I can be happy, mad, glad, sad. It doesn't matter. Emotions don't necessarily have to be a bad emotion. It can be a good emotion too, but there still may be some negative consequences to those emotions. So again, that's all about, you know, knowing yourself, keeping yourself in check, and being aware of what you're feeling at the moment. Look for savings before you buy. And just, you know, again, we don't want to be overwhelmed, overburdened, and miserable about money, but we can make it fun when we try to do things differently, when we're trying new things, when we're trying to create new habits. I had to trick myself to save. You know, years ago, I had to put a savings account in a completely different bank from my main checking account, and then have my employer do the split so that, you know, most of my check went into my checking account, but then I started with a small amount for savings so that I would, over time, you know, get used to not even paying attention to that amount that went into a savings account. And now literally I only live off of, if you will, that amount that goes into my checking account. I don't even consider that money that goes into my savings account anymore. Now, it's taken me a long time to get to that point, but now it's almost like something did switch, and I like to see it growing and realizing that I have money saved that I've never had saved before. And that makes me feel really good knowing that something can happen and I can cover it. So you walk around a little bit differently because you're not sweating that if something were to happen unexpectedly, that, oh my God, what would I be able to do? It's not like I'm living in fear of, oh, I just don't need this to happen, because I know that if something were to happen, I can cover it. Now, of course, I would hate that I would have to spend it on that unexpected emergency, but I would much rather have that than putting on a credit card that may cost more because of interest or borrowing it from a family member. But then I just have to make a plan on replenishing that savings that I have had to dip into. And we know that creating habits or new habits take time. I've heard some crazy research about it can take anywhere from 18 to 254 days for a person to form a new habit, and that an average of 66 days for a new behavior to become automatic. And just like with anything else, whether it's dieting, exercise, doing something more or less of what you were doing before, it's gonna be all about continuing to do it. So if you mess up and you eat the brownie when you shouldn't have, then tomorrow's a new day and you start again. If you splurged and went shopping and you knew you shouldn't have, then tomorrow it's a new day. You just have to keep striving and going forward, especially if your goal is to change habits. There's definitely not a one size fits all, which is why I guess that time frame of 18 to 254 days is so long. And for some, habits may be easier to create or change than others. It's just really going to depend. There's no right or wrong when it comes to that timeline. The important thing is what's going to work for you individually. As women, I think we also need to make sure that we always raise our own voices. sometimes when we talk about money or there's a lot of interest in women wanting to invest, but because, and myself included, because I am not well versed or experienced or an expert in investments in that type of thing with stocks and all that kind of stuff, I am learning. Now, yes, I have a 403B, which is like a 401k, but for nonprofits. And I know I'm in that, and I know that I contribute to that, and I know that it grows. I couldn't tell you what in the world it's doing and why and who it's going to, because that's just confusing. But statistically, women usually manage money a lot better, or we can be a lot more creative in managing our funds. But a lot of times we are less experienced or knowledgeable or willing to take that risk for that investment side of things. So if you're not sure, or if you want to learn, speak up. Find someone that you can go to, that you can learn from. There's a lot of new technology. Speaking of technology and the disconnect, there's a lot of technologies that are available that can help you start small, whereas historically in the past, you've always had to have a very large chunk of money to start. And you don't necessarily have to do that now, but you need to also be comfortable enough to take that leap or to take that step, and or be comfortable with asking and finding the right resource or the right trusted individual to help you get out of or get beyond that fear of being out of your comfort zone and going into different areas that you're not used to, just like with anything else. You know, striving for balance. We always hear about balance, you know, with family life, work life, personal life, church life, extracurricular life, exercise life, whatever. We always talk about women and balance. I don't know if there's ever really a magical equation for that, but at least striving for balance and not striving for perfection, because obviously we're never going to be perfect, but just doing the best that we can. And, you know, the Chinese proverb that says, tell me and I'll forget, show me, I may remember, but involve me and I'll understand. So that's especially important when you want to try something different. And as that example with investing. So aligning your spending with your goals. First and foremost, and I have this conversation, or I have had this conversation with my female clients for many years, is that because we take on so much, and because sometimes we may or may not make the best financial decisions, or maybe we were in a crisis mode, and when we're in crisis mode, you're just not going to make sometimes the best financial decisions because you're in crisis mode and you're thinking about right now. I can't think about the future. I'm just trying to get through today, and that's okay. But I think one of the big things women have to do is we have to forgive ourselves. We have to release ourselves by forgiving ourselves and saying, hey, you have done the best you can do. Now let's just move forward, learn from our mistakes, and find out what we can do now better in moving forward with our financial lives. You know, I talk about reviewing your spending. I highly challenge everyone to track your spending, like literally with a piece of paper and a pen. Every day that you spend a dime, anything, write it down. Do that for a week. Do it for a month. You will be mesmerized, maybe even appalled at how much money you may be spending, or in some of the areas in which you're spending. I have found over the years in counseling sessions, a lot of times we will definitely underestimate a lot of expenses and overestimate in other areas. And usually it's the exact opposite, because we are doing so much in our head and calculating so much in our head that we don't realize until we write it on paper how quickly those cents add up. And I'm telling you, we did it for 4 months a couple of years ago. It was kind of like our New Year's tradition. We did it for a January, February, March, and April. I always suggest doing it a little bit longer because usually, again, it takes time to create a new habit. So you have to come up with your plan of how you're going to do it. since we were a husband and wife, and I needed to make sure that he let me know what he spent. So either he would keep his receipts. And so we kind of started working out a process. By the second month, I'm getting better at doing it. By the third and the fourth month, it's now become pretty automatic, and we've got our process down pat. But then totaling all those numbers at the end of the month, wow, like it, wow. All I can say is wow. It was like, wow. But reviewing where your spending is going to help you determine how you're going to be able to build your savings. Because obviously you have to be able to save what you're not spending, and savings needs to be a budget item, a line item on your budget. You know, it's not what's left over after you've spent what you're going to spend and then you're going to save. It should also be included. You know, you got tithes, saving, then your rent, mortgage, and the rest of your bills. Again, that can be a personal choice, but being able to identify and prioritizing your line items on your budget will also prioritize where you're putting your money. I'm sure everyone has heard about SMART goals, being very specific. You know, is it measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely? So a real easy, quick example is I want to increase my savings. So is that specific, or is that very like vague and broad?
I would say vague, a little.
It's very vague, right? So now I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to save $1,000 in 1 year. So I've got my specific goal. It's $1,000. I can measure it because I'll be able to obviously see it accumulate. It's definitely achievable because I've already done my budgeting beforehand, so that I know that I have the access and the capability with surplus income to do that. Obviously, depending on one's budget or one's goal, that $1,000 may or may go up or go down, or maybe the time frame is a little bit longer. I'm going to set that time frame, so I'm going to say at least within 12 months, I'm going to be able to save an additional $1,000 over what I'm already saving. So the final SMART goal would be it's going to take me 10 months to save $100 a month, so that in that 10 months, I will have my $1,000 goal. So it's specific because it's $1,000. I'm going to do it measurably, $100 a month. I can do it achievably because I have seen my budget and I know that I can do it. You know, you may have to take into consideration, does that include your unexpected things that may come up or not? Is it realistic? I think so. And is it timely? Yes, I've kind of set it to a 10-month to a 12-month. So even if you still stuck with a 12-month goal, you've kind of got those extra 2 months if you had to stretch it out if an unexpected event did come up throughout that year. So that would be an example of a very specific SMART goal. And as they say, a goal without a plan is just a dream. So either with using the poll, or the chat box, what is your top financial goal for this coming 21-22 year? If you feel so inclined to share, whether you want to use, excuse me, whether you want to use the chat box or the poll. And if you feel like sharing, what is your top financial goal? And it may not even be up there. I just threw some generic ones up there. Come on now, I know somebody better have a goal. Even if you just thought about it right now. And it doesn't have to be some big magnanimous goal either. It could be Miss Hazel decided she's only going to get 3 things that aren't on her list instead of 10. Nobody?
Okay, I have 2.
Okay, what are yours?
To start and increase my savings. I
Okay.
have I went through all my purses. I found lots and lots of change. Me and Brittany
go.
talked about that. So I counted up last night. I didn't realize how much pennies, nickel, dimes, and quarters I had. I put it in my jar. I said, Hazel, this is right here. So every month, you know, when I get my Social Security check, I know that I have to put money back. I know I can't go to the grocery store and buy things that I'm not going to eat, because certain things I don't eat now. I have clothes that I don't need, shoes, and it's time to stop, because I want to buy a home. And with this extra spending and not putting my money back, and I be somewhere and I said, well, I'm going to pick up this, I'm going to pick up that. And I'm thinking, well, this money come back later. And then I get home, I said, why did I do this? And I'm bad with my check card. Like you said, if I don't have the money there, I use my check card. And then when I get home and I call to the bank and I check my balance and everything, I said, oh my, I said, then I have something pending, you know, like my car insurance and stuff. And because my car insurance due on the 5th and it be pending to the 11th at the bank. And I don't take in consideration that I've taken the money that they go take for my car insurance. That's in the bank, but it's pending in the bank, you know. And I've come to the conclusion that what I don't need, I've made up my mind I'm not going to buy, because I'm by myself. I don't need any furniture, clothes, anything, because I want me a home.
Well, there you go. There, that sounds like a goal to me.
Yes,
You want to
yes.
buy a home, and so you want to be able to increase your savings so that you can buy a home. So, do you have some kind of time frame that you're thinking of? When do you buy your house?
My time frame, I'm going to start like when I get paid in April with my check. There's a certain amount that I have made myself promise that I'm going to put back. I'm not going to touch it.
Okay.
And what I plan on doing, my income comes to Trueline Federal Credit Union.
Mm-hmm.
I have a checking account there, and also have a saving. And they give you a rainy day fund. I didn't even know I had as much money I have in my rainy day fund. I forgot about it because I don't have a card. If I have a card to a bank, that's where I mess up.
Yep. Don't get a card.
Right. I told the teller I was on the phone. She said, Miss Griffin, you have your rainy day fund. You want to know how much is in there? I said, no, rainy day fund. She said, yes, it's something that we put extra in your account. She told me that. I said, oh my. I said, well, honey, keep it. She said, excuse me. I said, well, it's gonna stay there. So I made up my mind, starting in April, when I get my check, I'm going to take money off of my card, roll it over to the State Employees Credit Union, because I have a global account. I don't have a bank card for that. So once I go inside the bank, put that on my card, it's there. I won't have no, you know, well, really, I would know it there, you know, kind of later when I go get it. But every month, I won't have a card to go to the ATM and say, well, I'm going to swipe this card.
Yep.
So I have a plan. I need to do, nobody would do it. Yeah, I'm going to do this for me because I want me a home.
And sometimes you might have to write it down. You may have to put you a picture on the refrigerator of a house, something that's going to motivate you, do a vision board. That's another thing that I miss doing with the pandemic. I love to do vision board workshops. So, you know, make your own little vision board, something that's going to motivate you to stay on task for, you know, whatever your goal is and get started. Miss Willette, you want?
Yes, I can do it. I can do it.
You can do it. Yes, you can. So Miss Willette, you're gonna this year you want to pay an additional mortgage payment to principal. That's a very good goal. And do you have your process or how you're going to get that done? You got that figured out for yourself?
I believe so. I'm trying to get it paid off. I've been in my home 22 years, and I know if I pay an extra payment, I had called to ask, like, how much would it help if I paid just one payment above, and I could get it paid for in 2 years sooner, I think it was. And so that's the goal.
Yeah, that would be great. And I always tell people to make sure that when you make extra payments, that's great to pay down debt. But just make sure you always have savings, because obviously if you make extra payments toward your debt, especially a long-term debt, you know, and then you all of a sudden you need it because an unexpected emergency came up, you know, they ain't gonna give it back to you. So you just make sure that if you're able to pay down debt quicker and make double payments, that's great. But just always make sure you got those savings too, just in case. Great, so we got some good goals going, so that's awesome. So real quick, the money disconnect, because we are getting close, it's 1:15, and I want to be able to, if y'all have any other questions, but this part, and I kind of touched on a lot of it already when we were talking about, you know, technology and how we're on autopilot now and how we can swipe those ATM, them debit or check cards. You know, but most of the time now, anybody that gets paid, whether it's a Social Security benefit, whether it's a unemployment, whether it's a job, probably 9 times out of 10, most people are receiving their pay electronically in some form or fashion, even if it's on a pay card, whether it's their own personal bank account, a prepaid loadable card, what have you. I think Social Security retirement now is all direct deposited for the most part. And it's probably also much safer because especially now with the mail service is slow, you got people that want to take your mail out your mailbox. So everything is so technologically done now with direct deposit, e-pay, online banking, you know, bank statements. You can even opt out so that they don't come in the mail, and you can get electronic statements, but you still need to, you know, to really look at them to make sure to make sure that things are accurate, to make sure your bills are accurate, that what you're charging is accurate, because so many times we are on autopilot that we may not even catch a mistake for months, and it's going to be much harder to go back and argue a dispute when it happened months ago versus if we catch it, you know, right away. Money is very personal, it's complicated, and too often it can be ignored. Not knowing how much money you have or how much money you owe or how much money you need. It can also facilitate a money disconnect that will favor spending. It eliminates savings, and it creates financial problems. And so according to a study done at Harvard, when people are going through social media platforms, it lights up the same part of the brain. Here we go, talking about the brain again. That ignites the same type of thing as it does for when people use drugs. And it's that dopamine inducing hormone or feeling. So if you're addicted to social media, just like you are with, you know, possibly shopping or gambling or spending or what have you, the whole point is that social media has gotten so addictive that it has affected personal relationships between humans, right? We hear that all the time. We see it greatly with our youth, with our school-aged kids, with romantic relationships. You know, Facebook and those social media platforms initially were great because it was connecting long-lost relatives. It kept people in touch that we couldn't see every day. It's definitely helped people stay in touch through this pandemic. But then you also hear all the time about, you know, young girls that are being persuaded or hooked in some false sense of relationship with, you know, inappropriate aged men and just crazy things that happen to where social media and likes, how many girls are getting liked or getting photo comments or positive comments, that it's also affecting self-esteem and all of those kinds of things. So those types of things can also be linked to higher levels of loneliness, envy, anxiety, depression, narcissism, and decreased social skills. And so the same effects that we're having with human person-to-person relationships because of social media, technology, the inability to communicate directly. It also happens with us with our money relationship. And people don't realize that the way in which we connect with our money or not connect with our money does also impact the way in which we manage our money. And like I said earlier about this whole keeping up with the Joneses, you know, we now have this whole hybrid digital version of keeping up with the Joneses, because of course on social media, you have people that are always posting, well, most of the time, all the pleasant memories or the fabulous vacations or the new clothes or the new shoes, but we don't really see what's happening in real life when the camera's off or when the photos aren't being taken, or where there may be abuse that's happening, or unhappiness or loneliness, or etc. So there was actually a study where they talked to men and women from ranges of the age of 28 to 73 that are active social media users, and found that 60% of people using social media reported that it has impacted their self-esteem in a negative way. 50% reported that social media having negative effects on their relationship, and 80% reported that it's easier to deceive others through social posting. So if we know technology and social media affect personal relationships, then it can also definitely, and it is also definitely affecting our financial relationship with our money. Technology can be kind of a negative influencer with regards to finances. Today's digital world often means that people have a broader network of potential social influences. So, you know, we see what the stars are doing, or what your neighbors are doing, or people from TV or movies, or, you know, the music industry, etc. The more removed people become from their money, the less they may think about how much they're spending and saving. So the more you're disconnected, just like, you know, talking about shopping and spending, you know, if we're not connected, we're so far removed from it that it makes it easier to spend, until now it's too late and we've realized that we've gotten ourselves into a financial predicament. There was a particular researcher that made this point, and I thought it was perfect. So think about, and I've never been to a casino, so I don't know what it's like to go to a casino. Again, I'm worried about, because I have so many addictive behaviors. I don't know if that's a good thing for me to do or not. But when you gamble, from what I understand, you're given chips. So why do you think that is? When you're given gambling chips instead of actually walking around with a wad of cash, it's
Disconnected.
it's because
So you can spend more.
So it's fake. It's like when you spend your chips, even though you had to swap cash for these chips, but that connection, or that reality of what the chips actually stand for have now changed, and it's easier to spend. And when he said that, I was like, that's perfect, because I kind of also now equate like gambling chips to our debit card. You know, so now the more tech we go, the less people are valuing actual currency, which I think speaks volumes. And I think that it's really relevant in what, you know, how people manage and how they're spending and how they're handling their money. As I said before, more than half of Americans have less than $1,000 in a savings account. And they probably can't even tell you what the last 10 transactions or the last 5 transactions that maybe they have spent using their debit card, because it is so just automatic and robotic, and we're not even paying attention. And so generally this researcher said, and I thought this was perfect, and I quote, "Generally, people are not getting better at saving through technology, they're getting better at spending." And don't you think that's true? I just think that is so true. So we have to check ourselves within which the manner of what we're spending and how we're spending. There was also a Pew Research, and it's so funny because I used to hate hearing people talk about research studies, but when it makes sense and you can actually see it, and I know that a lot of times this even hits close to home for myself and my own behaviors. I mean, it's just so obvious. But people's cognitive capabilities will be challenged in multiple ways, including their capacity for analytical thinking, memory, focus, creativity, reflection, and mental resilience. That's actually coined as a digital deficit. Like, we now have this technology, this digital deficit that affects us in that way because of technology. And then of course we know about digital addiction, digital distrust, or divisiveness. Think about, you know, technology through political elections and just social issues in general, how divisive social media and technology has presented and caused people. Digital duress, it's information overload. I mean, with this phone, we have access to information 24 hours a day, and that's too much. It's increases rises in stress, anxiety, depression, inactivity, and sleeplessness. I don't watch the news that much anymore because it is too depressing for me. If there's certain things that I need to know, I'll find it, or I'll see a headline or something. But some stuff I just don't want inundated in my head all the time.
I removed the news feed from my phone. I just
Yep.
deleted it because you just get into it and there's so much bad news.
Yep, it is. It will just take over. And so when you think about how that affects you, having that connection, then how is that also affecting our money connection? So if we think about what we do going forward, on top of also reflecting our own individual selves and being aware of what we need to do, but we also need to empower others. So not just necessarily always, obviously, yes, we need to be helping our youth and our young girls. Women still earn less than men. The racial disparities are even higher with Black and brown women. Debt is still higher among women when it comes to student loan borrowing. But yet, especially in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, there's more women than men. But also in Winston-Salem, it's also one of the worst counties in the country in which to elevate out of poverty. So what does that say? That says a lot. We are more women than men. We get paid less than men. We usually have more caretaking responsibilities than men. We usually have to set our schedules around the caregiving of everyone. Childcare is extremely expensive. There's a huge benefits cliff that occurs when women advance to a certain dollar amount in salary, and then they end up losing benefits for like childcare subsidies or things of that nature. So there are so many things that don't work well, and there's so many systems that have to be changed. But we also need to empower those that come behind us, those that walk with us, those that are beside us, and share this information. And I know young people say all the time, well, it's different now and then it was when you were a kid. My daughter says that all the time. I'm like, whatever. Kids, especially young teens, young adults, they think they're invincible and they know all the answers or whatever. And a lot of times, yes, they do need to learn by their own trial and error, just like we did, and just like those that will come before us and after us and all of that. But just, starting these conversations about, what the magic of compound interest is, and always putting herself first, teaching her about an emergency fund and how important it is to save first and to pay yourself first. And when I used to hear pay yourself first, I thought that meant go shopping, and that is not what that means. Paying yourself first means putting something away for later. So whether that's a rainy day fund, an unexpected emergency fund, or you may have a couple of different buckets that you're saving for different things, do that. Encourage the entrepreneurial spirit, but that it's done in a way that is also encouraging reaching out for additional assistance, advice, information, education, mentoring. There's great services, especially in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County, around small businesses. And another thing is, a lot of times we know our value, or maybe we don't, but at the same time, it may be hard for women to ask for a raise, let your voice be heard. Put it down on paper, what you started with, what you've now acquired since you've been there, how this may fare. Now, you may or may not get it, or you may get something less, but at least, when you have the information to back up the additional skill sets or roles that you have added onto your initial job when you first started, these are things that we need to also speak for ourselves. Men do it, they got a problem with it. But we, for some reason, don't. And so we need to get comfortable in knowing that it's okay to ask for a raise. Explaining credit, the importance of it, even if they may not get it all right now, but just right now. And I'll tell you, I'm not the best with my own daughter. I have given her basically the fear of God about credit, just so that she won't apply for anything, because I just don't want it to mess her up like it did with me when I was younger. Show her why and how things behind family decisions can impact either the right now or future generations. And above all, lead by example. I got a bunch of resources and links, which is why if you do want a copy of this PowerPoint, Brittany, I'll probably just mail it to you or email it to you, but you feel free to also email me if you are interested. There's a lot of little goal worksheets, little spending habit and money type quizzes and questionnaires, little things that you can do for yourself. But reconnect with your finances, find out what works for you, be aware of your spending triggers, think before you spend. When you mess up, keep trying. Personal money management is an ongoing life skill, ever changing and evolving. I don't think it's something that we ever truly master. And take my survey. That's all I have, right at 1:31. I'm sorry I kept you a minute over. Does anybody have any questions or any comments?
So Lisa, once we get the PowerPoint, that's when we take the survey?
You can, because I forgot to copy it so I could paste it in the
Okay.
chat. But yeah, if you'll do that when I send it to you, that'll be great. That would
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make sure that you all have access to that. But Lisa, thank you so much just for sharing just real practical tips on being mindful of your spending. And if I know Willette and Hazel have been in other sessions during the week, and mindfulness and self-care and all of those things are trending topics of how all of these things affect everything that has to do with us, especially our money and the way we spend our time and energy. So we truly appreciate you. And as you all know, we have our weekly events to continue through to Friday. So definitely visit habitatforsight.org, and we will have this particular video posted on YouTube so that Lisa can further become Habitat famous. So we thank you so much for your time today, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. Thank you, Brittany.
Thank you.